I was 65 years old when my husband of 4 decades walked out of our Virginia home with a suitcase, a smirk, and a woman young enough to be our granddaughter. But that's not the part that broke me. The part that shattered everything was when that same young woman, the one he abandoned me for, showed up on my porch months later, mascara streaked, hands shaking, whispering, "Please, I need your help. He's not the man you think he is." My name is Linda Matthews, born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. I'm an American woman who lived her entire adult life believing in loyalty, quiet strength, and the kind of marriage people praised us for at church potlucks. 42 years together. 3 children. 6 grandchildren. A lifetime of memories that, apparently, meant nothing to him. Because the moment Eric, my husband, turned 67, he decided he wanted to feel alive again. And apparently, feeling alive looked like a 29-year-old fitness instructor named Kaylee from the gym we'd both been attending for years. Yes. He met his new soulmate in the same building where I did my low-impact senior yoga classes. When Eric told me he was leaving, he did it while closing the door of the walk-in closet he had turned into a mini packing station. No eye contact.
No apology.
He simply said, "Linda, you're a good woman. But life is short, and I want something fresh. Don't make this harder than it needs to be."
Fresh.
As if I were a wilted head of lettuce he could toss aside. The neighborhood gossip spread fast. One afternoon, I caught my next-door neighbor, Sharon, whispering over her fence to another woman. "He's with someone younger. Much, much younger." Their eyes drifted toward me with that same pity people reserve for widows and lost dogs. But I wasn't a widow. I was something worse. A woman replaced. The first few months alone were a blur. Silent dinners, empty beds, and long walks through Bird Park just so I wouldn't hear the quiet pressing in on me. I tried not to think about their new life. Tried not to imagine them traveling to Florida like Eric had promised me we'd do for years. Tried not to picture him smiling in ways he hadn't smiled with me in a long time. But the universe has an awful sense of humor. Because 3 months after he left, I saw them, hand in hand, at the Short Pump Town Center outdoor mall. Her in tight leggings and a crop top. Him in a leather jacket he never had the confidence to wear when he was with me. They didn't see me, thank God, but I saw enough. He had become someone unrecognizable. I spent the next few weeks rebuilding my routines, forcing myself to reconnect with my church circle, volunteering at the Central Virginia Food Bank, and slowly piecing together something like a life again. And then, one rainy Thursday night in October, everything shifted. A frantic knock rattled my front door around 11:30 p.m. I assumed it was one of my neighbors. Maybe someone locked out or needing help. But when I pulled open the door, I froze. It was her, Kaylee, soaked from the rain, trembling, clutching a small duffel bag to her chest like it was a life preserver. Her voice cracked. "Linda, please." I didn't know where else to go. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. Seeing her there felt surreal, like life had folded in on itself. She lifted her eyes, terrified. "Eric, he's not who you think he is. I made a mistake. A horrible mistake. And now I don't know how to get away." I should have felt satisfaction, justice, vindication. But standing face to face with the woman who helped tear my marriage apart, all I felt was a cold wave of dread. Because the desperation in her voice wasn't fake. Something was very, very wrong. And whatever had driven her to my doorstep in the middle of the night was something I never imagined I'd get pulled into. Something that would expose the truth about Eric. A truth even I wasn't prepared for. For a moment, the only sound between us was the rain hammering against the porch roof. I should have shut the door. I should have told her to go back to whatever mess she helped create. But something in her eyes, fear, not guilt, made my breath catch. I stepped aside. "Come in before you freeze." She slipped past me, dripping onto the hardwood floors I had cleaned earlier that evening. I wrapped a towel around her shoulders and watched as she stood shaking in the soft glow of my living room lamp, a far cry from the polished, confident girl I had seen giggling on Eric's arm at the mall. She seemed broken. When she finally spoke, her voice was thin. "Linda, you have every right to hate me. But please, Please listen before you tell me to leave. I sat across from her, hands clasped tightly on my lap. Then start talking. Why are you here? She swallowed hard. It's Eric.
He's not who he was with you.
He's different with me. Controlling. Angry. I didn't see it at first. A bitter laugh tried to rise in my chest. I lived with that man for 42 years. Believe me, I know exactly who he is. But she shook her head quickly.
No.
You don't.
You saw the surface version.
The patient, polite, charming Eric everyone respected. But behind closed doors, her voice cracked. He has a temper, Linda. A violent one. A cold, tight sensation gripped my ribs. Eric had always been dismissive, selfish, impatient, but violent?
No.
Not the man I knew. Or maybe not the man I thought I knew. I leaned in, my voice level but firm. You need to tell me exactly what happened. She reached inside her duffel bag with shaking hands and pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked. She turned it toward me. Bruises. Dark, swollen marks along her ribs and thigh. My stomach twisted so violently, I had to steady myself against the arm of the couch. She whispered, "This was last night." He snapped because I didn't answer my phone fast enough. I felt a surge of disbelief, so fierce it almost hurt. Eric, who once cried when our daughter scraped her knee on her bike, doing this?
No. Y whisperat.
He wouldn't. He did, she said, her voice shaking. And that's not even all of it. She looked around as if expecting him to burst through the door at any moment. He monitors my location. He took my car keys. He checks my messages. If I talk to anyone he doesn't approve of, he loses it. I thought he loved me, but he doesn't love me. He wants to own me. The words sent an unexpected chill down my spine. Because, slowly, painfully, I remembered things.
Moments.
Little flashes. How he never liked when I went out with friends too often. How he needed to know every detail of my schedule. How he joked about me not wearing certain outfits because they were too attention-seeking for a woman my age. How he always needed to be right. Always needed to be admired. Always needed control. I had dismissed it as old-fashioned stubbornness. But now, hearing the same behavior escalate into something darker, for the first time, doubt crept in. Had I spent 40 years excusing behavior I should have recognized? I forced myself to stay steady. What happened tonight? Why come to me? She hesitated, then whispered the words that made my blood run cold. He threatened me, Linda. He said if I ever tried to leave, he'd make sure no one ever believed me. He said you'd take his side. That everyone would. And then, she exhaled shakily. I overheard him on the phone. He was talking about money. A large amount. Something about transferring accounts, cleaning up loose ends, and preparing for a trip to Arizona. He didn't know I was listening. I frowned. Arizona? He doesn't know anyone in Arizona. She shook her head. That's what scared me. He sounded dangerous. Like he was planning something. And then he locked the bedroom door. I panicked. When he finally fell asleep, I grabbed my bag and ran. I leaned back, absorbing every word.
Fear.
Money transfers.
Threats.
Violence. This was no longer about a marriage ending. Something far more serious was happening. Linda, I came to you because you're the only one he's ever respected. And the only one who might convince him to stay away from me. I'm begging you, please help me.
Her.
This woman had helped destroy my life. Yet here she was, hunted by the same man who betrayed me. I wanted to feel triumphant, vindicated. But instead, I felt something I hadn't expected at all. Responsibility. Or maybe recognition. Because as much as I wanted to deny it, a part of me knew Eric was capable of far more than I ever allowed myself to see. And Kaylee wasn't the only one who needed protection from him.
I didn't sleep that night.
Kaylee was resting in the guest room, my daughter's old room, while I sat at the kitchen table staring into a cup of cold chamomile tea. The storm outside had faded, but the one inside my chest had only just begun. Every memory of Eric played like a slideshow. The good moments, the laughter, the vacations, and then the small details I had shoved into the corners of my mind. The moments I never dared to question because they didn't fit the picture of the man I believed I loved. But now, everything was cracking. Around 6 a.m., I heard quiet footsteps. Kaylee emerged, wrapped in one of my old flannel blankets. She looked fragile, drained of the spark she always had when I saw her with Eric. "Thank you," she whispered, "for letting me stay. I know you didn't have to." I nodded stiffly. "This doesn't mean I've forgiven you, but no one deserves to be hurt." Tears filled her eyes as she sat across from me. "I know I ruined your life. I know I don't deserve your kindness. But I swear, Linda, I didn't know what kind of man he was." I raised an eyebrow. "You knew he was married." She winced.
Yes.
"I did. And that was awful enough. But the side of him I saw after he left you, it's like something snapped. He became obsessive, jealous over everything. He started drinking more. He'd rage over small things: if dinner was late, if I didn't look presentable, if I went to a gym class without telling him." A pit formed in my stomach. Because those behaviors weren't new. They were old, just softened by age or hidden behind the routine of our long marriage. I asked her gently, "Did he ever act violent with you before he left me?" She shook her head.
No.
"He was charming, attentive, even sweet. I think he was trying to impress me. But once he had me, it changed." Silence followed. Heavy, painful, honest. I picked up my phone. There were no calls or messages from him. No frantic texts asking if I'd seen her. Nothing. But when I checked the local news app, a habit I had after living alone, I froze. A report from late last night. A disturbance call at the apartment complex where Eric lived. Security footage under review. Police notified. My heart dropped. I turned the phone toward her. "Kaylee, was that because of you leaving?" She looked pale. "Probably. He screamed when he woke up. I heard him while I was running down the hallway." The idea of Eric rampaging through the building made my insides twist. I took a steadying breath. "Listen, we need to talk about what we're going to do now." Kaylee nodded nervously. "I can't go back. He'll find me. He always finds me. And you won't stay here long term," I said gently but firmly. "Because if he realizes you're with me," she finished the sentence for me, "he'll come here." We sat in thick silence for a moment until a thought hit me so sharply I nearly jolted. His behavior, the money transfers, the threats, the planned trip to Arizona, somewhere he had no ties. Something didn't make sense. I got up from the table and retrieved my old file box from the hall closet. Inside were our marriage documents, bank statements, insurance policies. I hadn't touched any of it since the divorce. As I began sifting through the papers, a familiar ache settled in my chest. These weren't just documents. They were reminders of a life I lost. "Linda?" Kaylee asked softly. "Look at this." I handed her a copy of our old joint financial statement from the previous year. She scanned it. He had money, but not that much. And the call I overheard. He mentioned moving 6 figures soon. 6 figures? Eric had never managed money well. He lived comfortably, but hardly extravagantly. Where would he get that kind of money? Unless something had changed after the divorce. I reached for my laptop. After logging into my old email account, I searched for Eric's name. And then I found it. An email chain from a lawyer. One Eric had accidentally CC'd me on shortly after he left. A conversation about an inheritance. A large inheritance. One he received from a distant relative in New Mexico just 2 months earlier. And the final email said, he planned to liquidate assets and move to a quiet area outside Phoenix. My chest tightened. This wasn't a man leaving to feel young again. This was a man preparing for something permanent. Something he didn't want anyone interfering with. Kaylee's voice trembled. What does that mean? I looked at her, my pulse beginning to hammer. It means he has money now. A lot of it. And men who have money, control, and no conscience are dangerous. Her eyes filled with terror. Linda, he's not going to just let me go. I swallowed hard, because the truth was sinking in, slow and suffocating. If what we feared was true, then the knock that came next on my door, whether it came today, tomorrow, or next week, would not be a friendly one. And we had no idea what Eric was capable of anymore. By the time the sun rose fully over Richmond, the weight of everything we'd uncovered pressed heavily on my chest. The house, once my sanctuary, felt smaller, like the walls themselves were listening, waiting. Every shadow seemed sharper. Every creak of the floorboards made Kaylee flinch. I finally stood and forced myself to sound calm. We need to think clearly. Panic will get us nowhere. But truth be told, panic had already taken root inside me. I had lived with Eric for 42 years, yet I suddenly felt like I had never known him at all. Kaylee clutched the warm mug of tea I'd given her. What should we do? Should we call the police? I hesitated. We could call the police, but her bruises alone might not lead to an arrest, especially if Eric put on that polished, reasonable facade he'd mastered over decades. And the money situation, we didn't have proof of any actual crime. Just unsettling clues. Still, I said, we'll file a report. If anything happens, at least there's something on record. She nodded, exhausted. But beneath her fear was something else, shame. And I understood it. I had lived through my own version of that shame all those months ago. I reached out and placed my hand over hers. Kaylee, what he did to you is not your fault. Her lips trembled.
No.
But I helped him hurt you. And now I'm paying for it. We sat there, two women tied together by a man who had betrayed us both in ways neither of us deserved. After breakfast, I let her shower and change into some older clothes of mine. She was smaller than me, but they fit well enough. Seeing her step out in my faded cardigan and jeans felt surreal, like two chapters of my life had collided into one impossible moment. When she came downstairs, she looked less like the polished young woman Eric flaunted around town, and more like a frightened 29-year-old girl who had made a terrible mistake and didn't know how to escape it. Linda, she said slowly, I heard him say your name on the phone yesterday. I stiffened. My name? She nodded. It scared me. He said something like, she won't interfere. I made sure of that. And then he laughed. A cold current ran through my veins. What does that mean? I whispered. I don't know. But the way he said it, it sounded final. I sat down, gripping the armrest tightly. Eric and I hadn't spoken in months.
No texts.
No calls. Not even a holiday message for the grandkids. I assumed he had moved on with his new life, leaving me as forgotten as an outdated phone in a drawer. But that wasn't the case.
He had been thinking about me.
Maybe watching me. Or worse, planning around me. We need to check something, I said suddenly. I walked to the front window and slowly drew the curtain aside. My heart sank. Across the street was a car I didn't recognize, mid-sized, dark gray, idling quietly with a man inside. I couldn't see his face clearly, but he wasn't looking at his phone. He was looking toward my house. Kaylee, do you know that car? She hurried to my side. Her face drained of all color. That's his friend's car. His drinking buddy. Eric said if he ever needed someone to watch his back, he'd call him. A chill tore through me. We stepped back, out of sight. He's watching the house, I whispered. He must know you left. Kaylee's voice cracked. He's going to come here. For a moment, fear pinned me to the floor. Not just fear for myself, but for her. For the life I had built, the peace I had fought so hard to reclaim after Eric shattered everything, and for the reality that this nightmare wasn't finished, not even close. We're leaving, I said firmly. We will not sit here waiting for him to decide what happens next. But he'll follow us, she whispered. That's why we're not going to walk out the front door. I grabbed my keys. The back gate opened into a narrow alley that led to the neighbor's yard. We could cut through and get to my car parked behind the house, a place no one would think to check unless they knew the property well. Kaylee followed close behind, trembling. As I unlocked the back door, I paused. One last look at the house, the life Eric and I built together, before I stepped into a future I never expected at my age. Linda, Kaylee whispered, what if he finds us? I took a slow breath. Then he's going to learn something he never bothered to understand in 42 years of marriage. She looked at me with wide eyes. What's that? I opened the door, letting in a sharp gust of cold fall air. That I'm not afraid of him anymore. But as the two of us stepped outside, hearts pounding, moving through the shadows behind my own home, I had no idea that the real danger, the truth about what Eric was planning, was far darker than we imagined. And it was already in motion. We slipped out the back door, the chill of the Virginia morning cutting through our clothes as we hurried down the narrow alley behind my house. The autumn leaves, damp from last night's storm, clung to our shoes as we moved. Every sound, every rustle, every distant engine felt amplified. Behind us, my house stood quiet, deceptively peaceful. I knew better. That stillness was a trap waiting to spring. Kaylee kept glancing over her shoulder. Linda, are you sure he hasn't seen us? I've lived here 30 years, I whispered. He doesn't know the back entrances. Just keep moving. We reached the side of my detached garage where my older Toyota sat hidden from street view. I unlocked it, ushered her inside, and we drove off through the rear exit, avoiding the road where the gray car had been watching. Only when we were several blocks away did Kaylee exhale shakily. That was too close. I kept my eyes on the road, heart pounding. We're going somewhere he'd never think to check. Where? The public library. No one stalks a library at 8 in the morning. It was the first place in town that had ever made me feel safe as a child. And right now, its quiet walls felt like the only neutral ground left. Inside the Richmond Public Library, we chose a table tucked between tall shelves. People came and went without looking twice at us, just two women seeking warmth and normalcy. A librarian with silver hair rolled a cart of books past us, humming softly. For a moment, I almost felt grounded. Almost. Kaylee hugged her borrowed sweater tightly. Linda, he's not going to stop. You know that, right? I nodded.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean we won't. I opened my laptop and pulled up the inheritance email chain again. Something bothered me. Something I hadn't fully processed last night. An email subject line. Transfer status. Pending beneficiary updates. Beneficiary updates? Beneficiary changes usually involved adding or removing someone from a will or insurance account. I scrolled further. Then I froze. There it was. A legal form requesting updated emergency contacts and default beneficiaries for Eric's new accounts. 3 names were listed. 2 I recognized. Our children. The third. My breath caught. Kaylee Harrison. She stared at the screen, horrified.
No final, no.
I never signed anything. I didn't even know. But then she stopped. Her face strained. Wait, she whispered. He asked me for my driver's license one night. Said he needed it for the gym membership discount. I didn't think anything of it. My stomach twisted. Kaylee, he didn't need you alive to keep you as a beneficiary. Her hands flew to her mouth. You think he? Yes, I said quietly. Yes, I do. The money, the sudden rage, the trip to Arizona, the talk of cleaning up loose ends. This wasn't about control anymore. It was about eliminating liabilities. And she wasn't the only one on that list. I checked the form again. My name was handwritten in the previous beneficiary box. Crossed out. A shaky realization tightened my throat. He already removed me, I whispered. He was planning something long before we knew. Before Kaylee could respond, my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. You should have stayed out of this, Linda. Another message immediately followed. Bring her home. Kaylee's voice trembled beside me. Oh God, he knows. He knows we left. I stood up, forcing my mind to stay clear. We need to go to the police. Now. But as I reached for my bag, another message came through, this one a photo, a picture, of the gray car, parked directly outside the library. Kaylee's breath hitched. He's here. He's already here. I grabbed her wrist. Come with me. Stay low. We moved toward the back emergency exit, slipping into the staff hallway. My heart hammered so loudly I could feel the pulse in my throat. We pushed through the door, emerging into a restricted loading area behind the library. But before we could reach my car, a voice echoed across the lot. Linda. Kaylee. We froze. Standing by the corner of the building was Eric. Older, colder, eyes sharp as broken glass. The man I once loved was gone, replaced by something hard and dangerous. Kaylee whimpered. Please don't let him take me. I stepped in front of her. My voice was steady in a way that surprised even me.
This ends now, Eric.
You're not taking her anywhere. He smiled slow, chilling. You think you can stop me? You? But then he stepped closer, and for the first time, I saw it. Desperation. Not sadness. Not anger. Desperation fueled by greed. You ruined everything, Linda, he hissed. If she walks away, I lose everything that's mine. And I won't let that happen. He moved toward us. Instinct took over, 42 years of suppressed fear breaking free all at once. I reached into my purse, wrapped my fingers around the small can of pepper spray I carried since the divorce, and pointed it at him. Don't take another step. Eric froze. Shock flickered across his face, but behind it rage. And I knew, in that moment, this confrontation wasn't over. Not even close. Eric stared at the pepper spray like he couldn't believe Linda, the woman he once dismissed as predictable, quiet, passive, was standing there telling him no. His jaw clenched. His eyes burned with a fury I had never seen directed at me before. But beneath that rage there was fear. A man cornered by his own schemes. Put it down, Linda, he growled, stepping forward. I tightened my grip. Take one more step and you'll regret it. For a moment, we stayed locked in a terrible stillness, the three of us in that empty library loading zone, cold morning air stinging our faces. Kaylee trembled behind me, inches from collapsing. Then Eric laughed. A hollow, twisted sound. You're not going to do it. You never had the spine. You spent our whole marriage doing what I wanted. He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't right anymore. I'm not your wife now, I said quietly, and that means I don't owe you fear. His smile vanished. Linda, move.
No.
He lunged. I fired. Pepper spray exploded into the air, catching him squarely across the eyes. He screamed, a harsh, guttural sound, as he stumbled backward, clawing at his face. Kaylee grabbed my arm. Go, go, go. We ran. Through the alley. Around the dumpsters. Past the parked staff cars. The world blurred into color and sound as adrenaline pushed us forward. Behind us, Eric howled. You're dead. Both of you. You think you can steal what's mine. I didn't look back. If I did, I might freeze. We reached my Toyota, jumped inside, and locked the doors. My hands shook as I jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. Kaylee gasped, He's coming. Through the rearview mirror, I saw him, stumbling blindly toward us, wiping at his burning eyes, swearing violently. His rage filled the entire parking lot like smoke. I slammed my foot on the accelerator. We sped away. We drove straight to the Richmond Police Department. Kaylee squeezed my hand the entire way, shaking uncontrollably. Inside the station, an officer named Detective Ramirez listened patiently as we poured out everything: her bruises, the threats, the inheritance documents, the stalking, the texts. When we showed him the newest message, the one saying, "Bring her home," he immediately stiffened. You both did the right thing by coming here, he said. This is dangerous behavior. And it's escalating fast. They took photos of Kaylee's injuries, copied every email and document, and pulled the library's camera footage. Within an hour, officers were dispatched to detain Eric for questioning. But fate had its own plans. An officer returned, expression tight. Ma'am, he's gone. The car is gone too. Kaylee's breath shuddered. He's running. Detective Ramirez nodded grimly. Which means he's scared. Men like your husband only flee when they know they've lost control. That gives us probable cause for a warrant. A warrant. For Eric. The man I'd spent 42 years building a life with. It didn't feel real.
But it was.
Kaylee wrapped her arms around herself. What happens now? Now, the detective said, we protect you both until he's found. He can't hide for long. He escorted us to a temporary safe house, a modest unit outside the city where victims in active danger could stay. It was quiet, clean, and secure. But the moment I walked in, a weight settled heavily on me. This was the price of loving the wrong man for too long. This was the price of ignoring the signs I didn't want to see. Kaylee sat beside me on the edge of the bed, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. Linda,
I'm so sorry.
for everything. For hurting you. For not seeing who he was. For dragging you into this. I looked at her, really looked at her. A young woman who had made a terrible choice, yes. But also a woman who had been manipulated by a man who knew exactly how to charm, control, isolate, and threaten. A man who once did the same, just in quieter ways, to me. You didn't drag me here, I said softly. Eric did. And he would have done it eventually, whether you were in the picture or not. She sobbed harder. I placed a hand on her back. We survived him today, I whispered. And that's more than he ever expected from us. As evening settled over the safe house, I walked to the window and stared into the fading light. The road outside was empty. No gray car. No shadow of him. For the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar bloom inside me. Not fear. Not grief.
Strength.
Hard-earned.
Quiet.
Unshakable. Kaylee joined me at the window. Do you think he'll be caught? I nodded.
Yes.
And when he is, we'll both finally be free. She leaned her head lightly against my shoulder. And there, in that small safe house room, two women, 165, 129, stood bound not by rivalry, not by bitterness, but by survival. Whatever came next, whatever justice awaited Eric, our story ended here. In defiance. In truth. In the strength he never believed we had. If you'd like, I can now provide.